Welcome everybody, it's Debbie O'Neill of Scrimmy Quick Designs, and today's project is another request from my group Let's Learn Cricut Design Space. And what we're going to be doing is using regular permanent vinyl to make this canvas project. So I'm going to show you how would you apply regular vinyl. There's another project similar to this that we use the iron-on vinyl. So this is another one of the vintage trucks that you can find in Design Space. I'm going to talk about that here in a minute. And then we're going to be adding lights to the tree in the back of the truck. So these make great gifts and just add a little bit of sparkle to your holiday. So let's talk about, I'm on my Design Space screen right now, and for this project I wanted it to be a horizontal one because the truck is going that direction, and so I wanted this to be larger. So this is going to be on an 11 by 14 canvas, one of those stretched artist canvases on the frame. So how did I decide to size the images? I went into the shapes over here. I went into just a regular square, and then I typed in the measurements so that it was 11 by 14, and that's what this white background here represents, would be your canvas. Okay, so this is kind of like creating your own little template. You're not going to be cutting this part out. This part is strictly going to be just for sizing purposes, and I'll show you when we get to that point that we just kind of get it off the mat when we go to cut. All right, so this is the vintage truck. It's called the Christmas tree, and you go into images and you just type in truck. You'll see it, it'll pop up. We're several different ones. I like this one because I like the clean lines of it. When you're going to be doing a lighted canvas, you need to maybe not have more than 2 layers that you're going to have to be slicing through the canvas and the vinyl to be able to poke the light through. If it's thicker than that, you're really going to have a lot of trouble trying to get all that through there. So I recommend no more than 2 layers. I really prefer 1 single layer on, at least on the piece where you're going to be doing the lighting part of the canvas. So what I did was I took this truck. I love the truck, but when I looked at the different layers of it, if you look over here in the layers panel, this truck has a whole bunch of different layers, and you can see that as you kind of scroll through, right? And I decided that this was going to be too fussy to use for the project, and then I thought, well, wait a minute, I can change this image. So what I did was I took the same image, okay, and I just removed some of the layers. Okay, so here, let me show you. So what I've done, I'm going to come up here and ungroup it. Instead of it being multiple layers on the tree, okay, I deleted them out. And then I sliced the bottom of the tree so it sits right on top of the base layer of the truck. That black layer is acting as the base layer for this particular image. So I want the tree to be sitting right on the edge of that. So I just took that same image, I sliced it so that it would fit right there. So now I've got a more or less a single layer for the tree, which will be perfect because the tree is the part we're going to put the lights in. And then I started looking at the truck image. Well, the truck image had 2 different shades of red for the truck. So I'm like, why do we need 2 different shades of red? And I wanted to keep it simple and more streamlined looking like you see here. So I just deleted that darker red layer and I left the top layer, okay, of the red, and then that goes over the black. And so that creates showing your steering wheel and your panels for your door and your door handle and the around the bumpers here and a little bit of, I guess that's kind of like the shadow of the side of the truck. So that's where I got to that point. And then I started looking at these wheels. Well, these wheels have 1, 2, 3, 4, there were like 5 layers to the wheels, which like I said, I wanted to keep it simple. So what I did was I deleted all the other layers, but I kept the white layer for the tires. Okay. So I did that, and then I start seeing the truck come come together in my mind of how I want it and what I know is going to look really good on my canvas. Okay, so if you like an image in Design Space, go and play with it. Go in there and, you know, remove some of the layers that make it too fussy for you to be able to use it to make a lighted canvas. This was the point of this discussion. So then I took a circle and I kind of sliced it so then I could create a headlight over here, because it looked like it needed a little headlight here. It's got a bump for a headlight, but it didn't have a headlight. So now I've added a headlight. So don't be afraid to add something to your image as well. And then for the truck, now you could just leave the truck just like this if you want, but I decided that I wanted to put the family name on the door. All right, now you could put anything on the door. It doesn't have to be the family name, but it sure looks cute to have the family's name on there. And all I did was I just went into text, I typed in my name. I'm using just the regular Cricut Sans font because it's a nice clean font. It reads easily and it's easy to read. And so if you want to do that, you would just do the same thing and then size it so that it's going to fit, you know, on the door panel part of that. You know, where people just take a Christmas wreath shape, or, you know, they don't write the family name, they write a tree farm or something like that on it. It depends upon what you want. You customize it to the way that you want. Okay, but that's how I broke the image that's in Design Space down so that it makes it easier for us to work with it on a lighted canvas. I'm going to go ahead and remove this piece, and I will leave a truck on my Design Space file, and I'm just going to go back and group it. So you have a blank truck basically. So if you want to use, I'll go ahead and leave my name here just to remind you, if you want to put a name on there, you can do that. If you just want to make the truck, then just make the truck. Okay, so that's going to be up to you. So the Design Space file that I created is going to have two trucks on it. One just showing you kind of where things go on the layout, and then also it'll have my family name on this truck, but you know, you can just delete that part if you want. But you have a clean one to use. If you're going to make this for gifts for people, make sure you make a duplicate copy of the truck, and all you have to do is highlight it and go over here to the layers panel and make another one, so that you have another truck that you can make. Okay, so if you're going to be customizing it and putting names on it, you just want to make sure that you don't delete one of your images and then have to recreate it all over again. I decided that I didn't want just the truck on here. I wanted to highlight the fact that this is going to be a lighted canvas, and it's a holiday theme, and it's something that my families may be sharing or setting out on the entry table or something. So I went into Design Space and I found an image in the Christmas phrases that I liked, and this one's simple. It just says be merry and bright, and I thought that this is going to be so perfect for this, so I put a phrase on the top of my canvas. Now you can choose not to do that. You could put snowflakes, you could put whatever you want to put on yours. If you want to add a phrase, you may not like this one, you may want to put something else. There's a ton of phrases in Design Space for you to use. Let me show you how I found that. So I'm going to go over to images, and then I'm going to go to categories, and then I'm going to scroll down and go to where it says Christmas. And once I get the Christmas category up, then I'm going to come over here to filter. Over here next to the search bar, there's filter, and then scroll down, and underneath type, I can select it for phrases. And what it's going to do is go through, find a bunch of different phrases that have been all categorized as Christmas phrases, and then all I did was scroll through here and find like three or four of these that I really liked. And then I picked the one that I thought fit my theme for my Canvas project. Or you can certainly just use text and create your own saying. Whatever you want to do, it's up to you. That's the great thing about this, is that it's up to your creativity. Let's say I'm ready to cut this. I've got my phrase up here. I've sized it to fit on my canvas the way that I want it, and everything looks good size-wise, so I'm good to go. But I need to remove some of these other images before I go send this to the cut mat, or it's going to try to cut all of this out, and I don't need it all cut out. So these are like templates that I left over here for you. So I'm going to just highlight these, and it's going to highlight in gray over here in your layers panel, and just go up here to group, and I'm going to just click the eye to make it go away. And I'm going to do the same thing for the next one. And I'm going to do the same thing for my name, just because that was just a reminder for you guys. So I'm just going to say hide it. And we don't need this template that we created. So I'm going to come over here and find where the square is, and I'm going to hide that. So now I'm down to just what I'm going to be cutting the vinyl out of. Now we're just going to go to make it. And you're going to see that it's got the different things. Now, I like to space my, if Design Space makes it so that it's a space saver, I guess you would call it. But I like to be able to cut out around my images when I go to weed them and apply them. So I tend to move mine just slightly over from this screen, which is kind of like the edit screen for this. You can do that. You can move these over. So some of you I know may not have seen this yet because you're new, but you can move your images apart just a little bit on this cut screen mat, okay? And then I would say, okay, continue, and I'll tell it to go to my Cricut machine. It's going to go through the whole process. I want to make sure that you pick the appropriate vinyl type, okay? That's really important for getting a clean cut with your vinyl, is to make sure you're picking the right vinyl type. You do want a fairly clean mat. Don't use one that's really super cut up, because sometimes you have some problems with that. But you know, more of a newer, cleaner mat would be good. That blue grip mat that I showed you earlier. And then you want to pick what vinyl that you're going to be using. For this particular project, we're using Cricut Premium Vinyl. If you're using a different type of vinyl, of course, you can go in and find which type that you're using by going to Browse All Materials. And then you can even just click under categories and go straight to vinyl. And now you have all the different vinyl types. So depending upon what you're using, now I am using the premium. The Cricut has two different products. They have something they call Premium Outdoor Vinyl, which is just kind of an older product line. And then they have something that they just call their Premium Vinyl. You cut it the same, whether it's the permanent or the removable. If it's Premium Vinyl, it cuts the same off the same setting, okay? But if you have some of their older vinyl that says Premium Outdoor Vinyl, definitely use this setting, because it is a little bit thicker and it needs a little bit more pressure to be able to cut it out. So we know we're going to use the Premium Vinyl setting. And then, of course, you know, you'll put it on your mat and then you'll just cut it out. We just use our regular fine point blade that came in your machine. There's no tricks here. You don't have to do anything else to the images. We're just going to go ahead and cut all the vinyl out, and then we're going to come back and I'm going to show you how to weed vinyl, and then we're going to continue with the project. So the supplies that we're going to need to make our lighted canvas project, let's go over those real quick. We will be weeding some vinyl, so you need a weeding tool. A pair of scissors is definitely handy. You need that. And then you need some type of a scraper. So this project is a little bit larger, and so instead of using the regular size Cricut scraper tool, I actually really love to use the extra large scraper tool. If you don't have this and you're doing vinyl work, you really ought to pick one up, because you'll see it covers so much more area. It's also great for scraping off, like when you're doing paper craft projects and you end up with all those little pieces still stuck to your mat. It's super cool to just scrape those right up. And we will need some lights. So the lights are these little fairy lights, okay, and they're super cute. And they're on a little battery pack, and they just have a switch here on them. So they're lightweight. I like to use these instead of the ones that use the AA batteries or AAA batteries, just because this is so much lighter on the back of a canvas. So if you're hanging it on a wall or something, it's going to be pretty easy to do. These have 20 little lights on them, and the battery's already installed, and you just switch them on and off. So super easy. They come in 3 different colors. They actually come in a bunch of different colors, but I typically buy them in packs of 6 because it's usually a little bit cheaper that way, but they come in packs of 3 as well. This is the bright white, okay, or what they call a pure white. And then they also have what they call a warm light, white, which looks more like a more vintagey kind of white Christmas-like color, more of a yellow tinge to it. And then they have the multicolors. Okay, I used the multicolor lights on the canvas project where we did the vintage truck that was in a vertical position that we used the iron on. So if you want to see those in action, you can go look at that video. So for this one, I am going to be using the warm lights because I just think it goes really well with that vintage feel that we're going to get using the vintage truck that we picked out. So once you know which lights you want, of course, I'll link all the supplies up in the description of the video so you can get these. I buy these on Amazon. They're like, I don't know, I think we get 6 of them for like less than $9. We need a 11 by 14 size canvas for this particular project. That's how I have the project sized in Design Space. If you want to make this on a smaller canvas or even a bigger canvas, then you can change the dimensions in the Design Space file. But for what I sized, I did it to fit a 11 by 14 canvas, so it's 14 this way and 11 this way, and we're going to be using this canvas in a horizontal mode, and we're going to talk about the canvas here in a minute. I get those in bulk at the craft stores or online. I'll link those up in the description of the video. I like to buy them in a set because that way I always have some on hand, or if I want to make multiple gifts. This is a great gift project, so definitely make sure you get some canvases. All right, so what we're going to be using on this project is we're going to use the Cricut Premium Permanent Vinyl. So I've got it in red, green, white, black, and gold are the colors that we'll be using on this project. And you will need some transfer tape, okay? So transfer tape you're going to use when you're using regular vinyl, and you want to make sure that it is regular transfer tape, not the strong grip transfer tape. Strong grip transfer tape is only if you're using glitter vinyl, and if you put it on regular vinyl, you will never get it up off of it. So make sure you're using regular transfer tape. The strong grip tape says strong grip tape on it, and it has more of a purple grid on it. The regular transfer tape has a gray grid. Now there's different transfer tapes. You can look and decide which ones you want to use. I tend to just stick with the Cricut transfer tape because it's always worked great for me. So that's what we're going to be using for this particular project. And then I have a tip for you that I want you to work on. We're going to go through and cut the vinyl out here in a minute to get ready for our project. But when you're working with vinyl, what you need to remember when you're working with it on canvas is that your canvas, when you flip it over, is a nice stretched canvas around this wooden frame. But it leaves this big void in the middle. So when you go to apply anything to it, it bounces, right? There's nothing rigid underneath it. And that's where a lot of people have trouble when they're trying to apply vinyl to a canvas. My tip is find a book or something that fits in the back. Now what I found were 2 magazines that I had laying around the house, and then I just took some butcher paper and wrapped them in that so that they held together like if they were one book, so they wouldn't be sliding on each other. I found that magazines are a good fit for the back of an 11 by 14 canvas. You're not going to find something probably that's exactly the same way, but what you're looking for is something that, because we can always shift the book underneath our canvas when we're working on that particular area of the canvas to apply the vinyl, but something that fills, you know, a majority of it. See, this one's pretty good because we're going to be applying our project more towards the center. So as long as it's fairly close to filling in the center of your canvas, you should be just fine. And you want something that's not going to stand up too high from the edge of the canvas. So let me show you. So it's still fairly flat. It sticks up just a tiny bit, but when I flip the canvas over to work on it, it's going to give me a nice solid surface for me to do my scraping of the vinyl onto my project, and it's not going to rock too much, okay? If you had a really thick book, it's going to be rocking on you, and that's not what you want. So let's get started. We're going to work on our vinyl cut. Now the vinyl, regular vinyl, just goes face up on your Cricut mat, and I like to use just a regular blue Cricut mat when I'm doing this. So you're just going to put it on just like you always would any other material, basically, other than iron-on. You're just going to put it on the top of the mat, okay? So, and then, so there's no, you don't have to mirror regular permanent vinyl, okay? Because we're going to be applying it on the top surface. I'm going to go ahead and get these cut out. You'll just follow the directions in Design Space for selecting the Cricut Premium Permanent Vinyl if that's what you're using, or you select whichever vinyl type that you're doing. Let's get the vinyl cut, then we're going to come back, we're going to weed it, and I'm going to show you how I kind of trim up my vinyl and get it ready for us to apply it. So now I have cut all the vinyl pieces and I'm going to show you how to weed it. So the regular adhesive vinyl has the color on the top of the vinyl, and then on the back of it is the liner for the vinyl. Okay, so this part is what we're going to be peeling away when we go to apply it, but you're going to leave it on while you're weeding. Okay, and then I like to use my mat and just stick my vinyl down. Now I've taken my scissors and cut around from the bigger sheet that I had cut this out on, so that I've got it pretty close to where the edge of the letters are, so that I'm not wasting as much vinyl and I can use the rest of it for another project. So I just want to take the edge of my weeding tool and go over it. Now what I like to do with these letters is just rub my finger over them like you see here. Okay, I'm just rubbing my finger over them. It just kind of helps it stay on the sheet, because the backing of this white part here is very glossy, and occasionally you may get a little bit of a lift from your vinyl, and that is a tip. If you just rub your finger over it, it helps. Okay, now all of this is attached. So as you're starting to weed it away, you may end up where you get too much in your hand to control it. Okay, if that happens, just grab your scissors and cut some off like that. Okay, because you don't want it coming back on the vinyl part that you've weeded, because then it gets harder to get it off. Now just make sure that if you've got loops on your letters, like on this particular font, just make sure, just go a little slow. You don't need to go super fast to do this, and make sure you're getting all of the various loops. Now when I go in here to like where this M is, sometimes I'll just use my tool to help kind of lift that up as I'm pulling the rest of the vinyl away. Okay, so you know, just don't rush it. You don't want to tear anything. And that just helps lift that right off. Okay. You want to make sure that if you have an eye, like under on the word bright, there's a little eye, so there is a dot. So we want to make sure that we get that dot stuck down. Sometimes you need to put your tool down and then grab it. Okay. And we're going to lay that down. Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing where this is starting to get a little bit more in my hand than I want, because it's sticking back down on top. So I'm just cutting it off. No one says you have to pull it all up in one fell swoop. Okay, just make sure as you're doing it, the N over here on the word and is a little bit thin line around that side of the N. So I just want to make sure that it stays down as I'm weeding it. Okay, so now we've got this part weeded, and then you need to, anytime you have words, you're going to probably have some letters that have center. So you want to go in and remove all of those, because nothing is worse than when you go to put your vinyl down and you stick it on your project and then go, oh, I completely forgot to weed out the E, because then it doesn't look as much like an E. Now, I chose the gold vinyl to do the Merry and Bright just because I thought that was more festive looking. You may have chosen to do it in a different color. Okay, but you're going to weed everything the same. So now we're ready to apply the vinyl to our canvas, and this is that 11 by 14 stretch frame canvas. It has the void in the back, so you want to take your book, whatever you've decided you're using, a book or a board or whatever, and you want to put it over your canvas like that. Okay, now my book is not quite as wide as my canvas. It's okay this direction pretty much, but it's not quite as wide. So what I've done is I've kind of shifted the book over towards the right so it fits up in the corner. The bulk of our project is going to go across like this, so we're going to be fine with that. And we are going to start with the first layer, which will be the truck. We do have Merry and Bright that's going to go up here in the corner, or at least on my project, Merry and Bright's going to go up here. So you'll want to determine where you want your truck to be. Okay, now I'm taking into consideration that there is about a 1 inch border of the wood around the edges of this. So I'm going to stay on the canvas and not be pressing down onto the wood. So I just want to make sure that my truck looks okay. I'm also using the edge of my mat, the grids on my mat, to help me keep my canvas straight. Then of course you're going to have your tree is going to be sticking up in the back here, okay, along the edge. So we want to make sure we've got our tree shifted over enough that it's not going to interfere if we've added a word or a phrase at the top of this. So that looks good. So just kind of think about that as you're starting to place things, so you know about where you're going to be putting things. So I'm going to leave this up here in the corner just so it'll help visually tell me we'll be putting that on last. And then you want to have all your pieces, and then you have your transfer tape. So what I like to do is just take my image, my biggest image, whatever I'm going to use, and I'm going to trim some transfer tape. And I like my transfer tape just to be slightly bigger than my object, just so it's easier to peel it up. So now that we have this, then I want to be able to apply the transfer tape onto my image. Now this is pretty big, so I'm going to move this up here out of the way so I can work here where you guys can see what I'm doing. Okay, so here is my image. I've already weeded it. We're going to be using that. This is the transfer tape. This is a large shape. Okay, it's about 11.5 inches. Okay, so once I have my transfer tape, I'm going to, then I've removed it off the liner, then I'm going to fold it in on itself like this, and I'm going to lay it down on top of my project, and I'm going to just slowly lift down one side of it, and then I'm going to do the other side. Okay, so that way it's going to be on here. It'll be fine. It doesn't have to be perfectly straight. I'm not worried about that. So you just want to make sure that the transfer tape covers the whole image. Then you're going to use your scraper tool. You can see on a project big like this, if I had this one, it would take me a lot longer to go through and do this. Now, I don't care if there's bubbles on the transfer tape. That doesn't bother me. I'm not going to want bubbles on my vinyl though. Okay, so if it's got some bubbles on the outside of the transfer tape, don't even worry about those. All right, so we're going to lift this up. Now what you're going to do is you're going to remove the liner from the back of the vinyl. That's what this is. This was the liner from the back of the transfer tape. Okay, and this has a waxy side on it. I'm going to save this so I can put my transfer tape back on that. But this is the liner from the vinyl. So this part can be thrown away. Okay, and it's the Cricut Premium Vinyl has a green backing on it. And so you don't need that again. All right, so we're going to go back to moving our project over here. You guys can see it. I want to get it all squared up here. And then we're going to put our truck on. So there again, I want to lay this down one side and then the other. Now, if you want, you can measure this and figure out where the center point is of it. I tend to just eyeball mine and get it on here where I want it to be. And then I'm going to lay down one side of it, and then I'm going to lay down the other side. Okay, now once I get that on there, then I'm just going to use my scraper tool, and I'm really going to burnish. That's what this is called when you do this. I'm really going to burnish that vinyl really well onto my canvas, making sure that my book is down on here on the canvas so that it will help me press harder. Okay, so if your book is a little bit smaller, then you want to move your canvas around. Like I need to move it over to be able to get to the side over here, but you want to make sure that you've got all of that on here really well. We just need to roll this back, and then you just roll it. I just roll mine down. Okay, I like to pull it off at an angle, making sure that it looks like all of my vinyl is down. I'm not getting any lift on it. It looks perfect. Okay, so then I can just peel it off. Okay, so now we've got the truck on. So now we're going to put the top layer on, the red layer. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to move this off and then lay this on. I'm going to use that same piece of transfer tape. I don't need a new one because it's still really sticky. So I can just lay it down just like we did the other one. And it doesn't matter whether you go left or right. That's just my preference. And then, of course, I'm going to burnish it onto the transfer tape. And then I use the scraper tool to get it up off my mat. So now we've got the top layer off. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to take the back of the vinyl off. There we go. We're going to roll this back down, move everything so it's the way it needs to be. And then what we want to do is when we go to put the top layer on, this part needs to be lined up the most, okay? Because this is a curve, and that's where if we line this part up appropriately, everything else should fall in place. You can always look at your image and determine that. And then I'm just going to lay it down on top of that until it looks like that is in exactly the right spot, which it is. And then I like to just kind of smooth it down with my fingers. And then I'll take my scraper tool and go back and really scrape this on there. Okay, so I'm really going to burnish this on there really well. There again, moving my book underneath around enough that it's covering the void on the back, so I've got good surface for me to rub against. So I need to shift my canvas over so that I have a book underneath this edge down here, and then we're going to peel this off. So we're just going to do the same thing. We're just going to slowly peel this away. And we can go in and just kind of maneuver it with our fingers. Because we have some voids here where we've got little cutouts, sometimes you get some air bubbles in here. That will go away on its own, really. You're not going to see that later. We'll go in and see what we can do with that, though. Okay, so we've got all of this off. Now, this is where I'm going to put this back onto my transfer sheet liner so I can use this piece again in a minute. We've got it on. Now, you may see a few little bubbles. If you can just smooth it. You don't want to scrape too hard. You can just kind of move it towards the edge. Because we have these slices here, it let a little bit of air underneath this part, so this looks a little more bubbles on here. That's normal. You didn't do anything wrong. It's just the nature of the vinyl. Now we're going to apply our tree. This is much smaller, so I'm going to go ahead and just cut another piece of transfer tape for this, just to make it a little easier to manage than dealing with that giant piece. Move this up. We're going to be done with this in just a second, but now you're just going to do the same thing for the different layers. Lay the transfer tape down, burnish, take the liner off. The more you do this, the faster you do it. I'm kind of doing it in slow-mo for you guys so that y'all can see exactly how it's going. All right, now my tree goes in the back of the truck, and it's going to sit, I have that slice part here on the bottom of the tree, and it's going to sit right on that black piece. But the top of my tree needs to come right here just along the edge of the truck. So as you're laying it down, just kind of look at the position of it, and then you can go in and lay the whole thing down, and then we'll go back and burnish it. So see, it's completely along that black line here, and then it just barely touches the top edge of the truck here. Now, this has a lot of those sharp points, so you always want to make sure that you do those points really well so that you don't have any lifting on those. I'm going to take the transfer tape up. And it looks great and ready for us to poke some holes in it and put some lights in it here in a minute. All right, now let's finish the decorating of the truck. So we have the wheels, so I'm just going to I'll just use the edge of this so I don't have to cut another piece. If you're uncomfortable dealing with a larger piece, please go ahead and cut yours into a smaller piece, but I'm okay with this. And then this just goes in the center of where the wheel is. And we'll go in. And then on these I may use my smaller scraper. Okay, there we go. And I'm going to use my Same piece. Put the other wheel on. I'm going to shift my canvas down. Okay, perfect. Okay, and then we need the little headlight piece. It's going to go on. I'm doing the same thing. I'm just putting it on the transfer tape and then taking the liner off the back of it and then laying it in the right spot. And I'll just put that on with my finger. We're good. All right, and then I am going to put my name on, our family name on the door. So I'm going to do the same thing where I put the transfer tape on it. I am going to use the scraper tool. Make sure that you scraped it pretty good, burnished it rather, so that all of your lettering is going to stay on the transfer tape. And then I'm going to peel the liner up. So when you go to peel your liner up, make sure that you have not lost any letters or dots or anything to your name. And then I'm going to lay the name on the door. You could slice. In my other video where I show you how to use the iron-on, I show you how to slice the name out to put on the back of the truck. I didn't do it on this one because it looked too dark to have the black layer shining through, so I did it with the white vinyl. I just think that looks more cohesive and it looks nice and it really pops. Okay, so now that we have that done, then we're going to do the Merry and Bright. Okay, so I'm going to take the transfer tape. I'm going to do the same thing where here is the word, the phrase that I'm using, and I'm going to lay it down flat on here. And then you want to burnish it really well. This has pretty thin letters. You want to make sure that you have burnished all of those really well so that you don't have any lift, and make sure you're not losing any eye dots. Okay, then we're going to flip it over and we're going to take the liner off of it, peel it right off. The Cricut Premium Permanent Vinyl weeds so easily. It's great. Okay, so now that we have this, I am going to go ahead and turn this back around. And then we're going to move this. I'm going to move in my book up so now it's in the top corner up here where my hand is. And then I'm going to line this up so I have a nice straight line. Okay, and then I'm going to put my Merry and Bright down. So I know I want it about here. I'm just going to drop one side down like this, and then I'm going to go in and burnish it. There again, making sure I'm paying particular attention to every curve. These loops up here, make sure you pay particular attention if you're using the same font as me. Make sure you're paying attention to those loops. Sometimes you need to get your hook tool to help you get that up. And then we're just going to peel that off. Again, going slow enough that I can see. Now on the edge of the T over here, I missed the end, burnishing it enough. So as I started to peel this up, it wasn't quite stuck enough, but I can always go back with my tool and redo that. Okay, so there we go. So now we have our canvas is finished. And now we can work on adding the lights. Okay, so now that we have our canvas, the vinyl on our canvas, we need to add the lights. So you will need to have a hot glue gun for this part. So make sure you've got your glue sticks and go ahead and turn your hot glue gun on so it's warming up. And we will need some type of an X-Acto knife or a blade to be able to slice through the canvas and the vinyl. So I'm using a Cricut True Control knife. I really like these. If you don't have one, I would definitely add this to your crafty wish list. And so you need a knife blade. You cannot use a paper piercer. It's going to make the wrong size of hole or shape of hole to be able to get this type of light in it. So you need that. You also, I just grabbed a toothpick out of my kitchen because you want a little bit of something to stick up into the back of the canvas so you can see where the hole is when you go to start putting your lights in. I just found that to be extra helpful. And of course, we're going to have our lights. Okay, so whichever color, I'm using the warm white color because it looks more vintagey to me. We're going to need to add this to the back of our canvas. We'll use the hot glue to help hold the lights down, but when we go to get this piece down, We don't want to add hot glue there, because what I found was that putting the hot glue deactivates the battery that's already inside of this. What I recommend is that you use some type of a double-sided sticky tape. I like the Score Pal tape, and I use it for all kinds of crafting, putting boxes together, everything. It holds up really well, and so I recommend you do that. And what we're going to do next is get started on cutting the back of our canvas. Okay, so we're going to flip our canvas over, and you're going to notice, you know, we don't have that piece in it that we used before, right? So it needs to not have that that board or book in the back of it. Now, what you're going to want to do is kind of figure out where you're going to put your lights. Now, what I want to end up with is that my battery pack is going to end up being down here in the left-hand corner on the back side of my canvas. Okay, so we're going to start at the end. You'll need to unwind these. So there's 20 little lights. We're going to start by putting a light at the top of our tree. So our first slit's going to go here at the top of our tree. And then what you're going to do is you're going to wind the wire around on the back until you have your lights going across your tree, kind of like just like you would do when you're putting lights on a real tree. So if you've done that before, you know, you just kind of go back and forth across the tree to get lights across it. So you'll end up, as you can start seeing kind of here, right? I start laying the lights out. So we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to be doing it on the back of the canvas. So what I like to do is go ahead and figure out where I'm going to put my slits, and just go ahead and start poking my holes. So I know I want one here at the top. I know that I want one that's going to end up down here at the bottom, because I need to put this string down, the control is going to need to go down here. So I know I'm going to want one kind of like down in this area right here. Okay, and so I've got one up here, and I know that I will want to kind of put them just like you would with the regular Christmas tree, just kind of run them across. And then when you get down here to the middle part, you can put one in the middle. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I'll probably add a couple of more up here. So we've got enough up here right now, and then I like to just kind of start putting them in, and then as I'm going through, I'll figure out where I need to poke another hole. So I just kind of start with some holes to begin with here, and then you're going to flip your canvas over, because it is kind of hard to see where you have the slits in the back of this. Y'all are probably not going to see that on camera, but you can kind of see where there looks like little hash marks on here. Okay, that's where we're going to be putting our toothpick or whatever, so I can see where the hole is. I have really bright lights in my studio so that the camera looks good for you guys. It may be easier when you're in your own craft rooms to see the hole a little bit better, but you're not going to see this on camera. Now, you can put a book or something here on the side to kind of lean the canvas against it to kind of help you as you're starting to put your lights in, but you're just going to get that first one in. Okay, so it just slips right into the slit, and then you're going to move the wire. So once I get it in, then I'm just going to put a dollop of glue right next to where the light goes. Okay, so you can see I just put a dollop of glue right there where my finger's pointing, and we'll let that cool for a minute. It doesn't hurt the wire, but it will hold it in place, and you don't need a whole lot. You just want it to be a dollop. And we'll let that cool off. And then what we need to do is we need to find where we put the next slit. So I'm going to come look at the front of my canvas over here and see that I made a slit here, but I probably want one up here as well. So I'm going to go ahead and add a couple of more slits. Okay, I'm making it about the point, about that far on the knife blade. Okay, because I need to be able to get these lights in. These lights are not round, they're kind of an oval shape. Okay, so now we've got this one kind of tucked in where it needs to go, and the hot glue's holding it in. I need to add the next light. We'll come over here. I'm going to bend the wire, and poke this light through the hole. I get the light poked through the hole, and I'll flip it around and look on the front side and make sure I like where it's at. And then I'll lay this down and I'll add a little bit more hot glue to hold these wires down. So you'll just keep doing this until you get all of the lights installed. Okay, so I'm just adding little dollops of glue. Be careful, don't burn your fingers. Once you hold it down for a second or two, a popsicle stick is also handy, or if you have one of those rubber tip, that's also good for holding it down. I just want to make sure you guys don't burn your fingers. And then, or I use a popsicle stick. It just kind of depends. I keep those with my glue gun stash at all times. Okay, so you're just going to keep doing this, and you'll just bend the wires as you go around, and it'll look like a kind of a zigzag going all the way through. So I'm going to go ahead and let y'all keep doing that. When we get down to the end, I'll be right back, and then I'll show you how we do we attach the lights. So now that we have our lights on the tree, it's looking pretty snazzy, right? We're going to flip it back over, and we need to attach this. Now, I'm going to want to put this on an end, generally about like this. Let me get on here and I'll show you guys. Okay, so I'm going to put this in this corner down here so that this will be easy for somebody to reach in and turn the lights on and off. Okay, there's just a little switch there. So what I want to do is put some double-sided tape on the back of this. I just put just a few pieces on the back. And then this has a plastic liner on it, but I want to rub this down really well with my fingers. And then just peel off the little liner. Put this down so that it's in the corner, and I'm just going to press it down with my fingers to make sure it's really well stuck. And then this little piece here, you can kind of just tuck it on the side of the frame. So now we have our finished horizontal Christmas tree using regular adhesive vinyl. This is the Cricut Premium Permanent Vinyl. It works really well. It holds great onto the canvas. You don't have to prep your canvases. If you buy the artist canvases that I recommend are already gessoed, so you don't have to go to a lot of extra steps. You can get these projects made quickly and start giving them as gifts this holiday season. That would be exciting, or just to display in your own home. Or let me know if you have any questions. I'm always happy to do tutorials for you guys. Please leave me a comment. I love to see that you like the video, that you share the video, and that you have a good time. Come follow us in the Let's Learn Cricut Design Space Facebook group if you're not already a member there. And I will talk to you guys later, and happy crafting.